Is it centered?
Yes.
Okay. Hi guys, my name's Joe Wasteman. I am a project manager for Pacific Nautilus, and we're going to be talking about what we're going to be doing over the next few months, a little extra activity that nobody else that I know of has ever done, and there's a reason for that. So we're going to start a little bit with the history. Chris Carter, president of Pacific Nautilus, back in September, walked up to me and said, when the competition gets here, don't be one of those guys. Don't be an idiot. And the problem is, the reason that he said that is because at competition, a lot of times people have conflicting ideas, and this creates conflict within the group. And also, when you're in a competition, it's just very different environment from the days prior to the competition, where you're methodically adding things and stuff like that, you know, one thing at a time, and it's a slower pace. So if we look at some of the things that other groups have done, like if you look at football players, you know, when they're practicing for a game, what they do is they work on their mechanics, they work on the individual components of their game, they talk about the competition that's coming up, the weaknesses and strengths of their opponent, and they actually simulate the competition itself at the practice. And if you look at boxers, tennis players, just about any sport, they do exactly the same thing. So they, you know, all of that. Let's see you raise a hand. Raise your hand here. When you were a child, after taking your first step, did you start running? No hands. Okay. After you learned the alphabet, did you start writing sentences? No hands on that either. Okay. How many of you went on your first date, and on your first date had the perfect date ever? No hands there either. Okay. So, now there's a reason I'm asking this. Okay, we're going through this process, and we're building, you know, this robot, and we say, oh, well, this would be better if it was just a little bit smaller, and all of a sudden it's smaller. Okay, just by an inch. Now, next day comes along and we say, oh, we want to make the front round instead of square. Okay? So what we're doing is we're making slow, incremental changes. We're thinking about it a lot before we actually do anything. And that's the way that it should be, leading when we're actually designing something, when we're working on it, when we're researching it. But the problem is, when the competition gets here, we find out it has to fit through something this size, and it's the wrong shape. So we say, okay, well, it'll fit through there if we put it through sideways, but, you know, this isn't going to fit, so we're going to have to round this off. And we have to make sudden, quick changes. It's not going to be perfect. It has to be as good as it possibly can be. It's an incredibly different environment. And just like the babies who don't run after taking their first step, the people who don't have their perfect first date on their first date, the people who don't write paragraphs and sentences and journals after learning the alphabet, you know, we're trying to change drastically from a group that works slowly and methodically to a group that works dynamically and quickly overnight, and it doesn't work. We don't have the experience as individuals and as a team working together in that sort of environment. And the reason is we don't have any experience doing it. We haven't practiced it the same way that, you know, your football players would, for example. So here's what we're going to be doing. As a team, we're going to actually have bi-weekly competitions. So we're going to have competition once or twice a month, and they're going to be very basic things, but they're going to be challenging enough to where we can get together on the weekends, spend an hour, do something fun together, and just go out and compete for the sake of competing. I'm going to need a committee of people to volunteer for this, and the basic guidelines that I'm going to provide are, I want it to be cheap and not interfere with school. So we don't want to make it so expensive that it excludes anybody. We don't want to make it so time-consuming that it takes away from people's studies. And if we do this should be a fun event, and it should be something that that creates experience in the areas where we need it, so that when we get to the competition, we'll have practice interacting with each other. And it should be fun. It's going to be like poker for engineers, basically. You can stop recording now.